So in this training video, what I'm going to take you through is targeting and audience deduping. Now, the word deduping is something you may or may not have come across before. Essentially what it means is you're competing against yourself in the auction process. So you've got two ad sets that, or even campaigns, that are targeting very similar audiences. They don't have to be exact audiences. In fact, you sometimes may not even realize that you're doing this. So this is what we call audience deduping. Now, here's why it's important. You got to remember that when you're launching a campaign on Facebook or an ad set, you're going into an auction process, and there's billions of these auctions that take place every single day. And remember, guys, as part of this process is your bid, your expected action, and the relevance. Now, let's say you've got two different ad sets under one ad account, or even different ad accounts for that matter. And ad set one is targeting a saved audience, so maybe it's a interest-based audience, and it's people interested in surfing, for example. And ad set number two is targeting another saved audience, and these guys are interested in Javianas or something like that. And so they're very, very similar audiences. Now, if there happens to be a very big overlap between these two audiences, meaning they share the same people within both pools, what's happening is you're essentially competing against yourself at this stage, right? So this is going to affect your bid. It's going to affect how much you need to pay and how expensive your results will be, and also how successful your campaign will be. So you're almost cannibalizing your own results. Now, here's what typically happens when you're deduping an audience. The first sign, and typically this is the first symptom, if you will, to look for, is your campaign will stall. So normally when you have a stalled campaign, the first thing to look after is, am I deduping an audience? And going through all the audiences that you're running through your ad sets and seeing, are there audiences here that are very, very similar or that are being deduped? So stalled campaigns, and this is Facebook trying to protect you, right? It knows you're competing against yourself, so it's going to slow one of those ad sets down, if not completely stall it. And the other symptom of audience deduping is your results are going to be a little bit more expensive. So if not more expensive, if not just a little more expensive, just more expensive. So you're not going to be very efficient or effective with your campaign results. Now, I'm going to take you through into an actual ad account here and show you how to see what the overlap percentage is between the two. But what we want to aim for is no more than 13% overlap. And the other thing to remember here, guys, is that different placements don't compete. So here's what I mean by that. Let's say you've got one ad set that's being fed to mobile and a second ad set that's being fed to desktop. Even though that's the exact same targeting, it's technically separate bidding. So it doesn't create deduping. So that's really important to note here. I will just make a quick note on this, is that Facebook doesn't like it when you split out placements like that. It prefers it if you bulk them all together. However, there are strategic reasons why you may want to do that. Testing placements properly, scaling, those are just some of those examples. So let's go into an ad account now and have a look at how to check the overlap with audiences. Okay, so now we're in Business Manager, and I've got a couple audiences here. And what you'll see here is I've got one for Gary Vaynerchuk. It's got 130 million people. And I've also got one called All On List, so it's an email list. So if I click on this one and the email list, what I'm going to do is go to Actions and then click on Show Audience Overlap. And here's what you'll see. Now, inside of the Gary Vaynerchuk audience of 130 million people, the percentage, so my email list here is 10,000 people. So the percentage of the audience in my email list of the Gary Vaynerchuk audience is 0%. There's a 0% overlap here. So there's 1,400 people that are also in here, so it's minuscule. It doesn't even register as a percentage, right? So, but if I switch this around like this, if I go all on list, what you'll notice here is it suddenly becomes 14%. And so what this means is that there are 1,400 people on my email list that are also part of the that also have the Gary Vaynerchuk interest, which actually makes up 14% of this audience, the 10,000 people. So I hope that makes sense, right? So it's 1,400 people, 10,000 people, so that's 14% overlap. Now, if I take Gary Vaynerchuk and I compare it against Social Media Examiner, what we'll see here is a 3% overlap, meaning that there's 22,000 people in the Gary Vaynerchuk audience that also share the Social Media Examiner interests, running these two targeting options as separate ad sets. So if you had one ad set targeting Gary Vaynerchuk as an interest and a second ad set targeting Social Media Examiner, wouldn't be a problem because there's only a 3% overlap here. However, if we look at, say, for example, John Loomer and Social Media Examiner, there's 5,600 of John Loomer's interest audience that also make up the Social Media Examiner audience. So 5,600 out of 20,000, that's 28%. So if I ran these two ad sets together, chances are this ad set targeting John Loomer would start to stall. If not, would cost a lot of money. So this is a very high overlap. So this is essentially how we use the audience overlap tool inside your audience tab to determine if you are deduping yourself. Now, quick word here, you access this tab just through your audience right here. It's under your asset library, so I'm using Business Manager, and that's how you use this tool.